And our teaching text today is Romans chapter 12. You have a few verses there on your handout, but I'm actually going to read the whole chapter. So this is your daily Bible reading today. I'm going to read the whole chapter. The reason is well, because I think it's that good. The whole Bible's good, but Romans 12 is shockingly good. And at this point, can I just give you a little background? So we're obviously in chapter 12. That means Paul has done 11 chapters of talking. And anytime you can get Paul talking about anything for 11 chapters, that's worth your time. But chapters 1 through 8, in Romans, Paul is expounding on the beauty of the gospel. He's talking about how God came as Jesus and entered the human story to do something we couldn't do without his help. And that is to bring us into unity with God. So because we could never reach God, we couldn't do enough to find God, God decided, I'm going to become human. I'm going to join the human story. And he desired unity with us to the degree that Philippians tells us Jesus set aside his divinity for a season to be able to enter the human story so that he can reconcile you with God, me with God. And the way we engage with that reality is we just recognize that it happened and we put the trust of our hearts in Jesus that he's done all that needs to be done. And the rest of our lives after that revelation is simply living in response of that revelation. That's what it is. That's the Christian life. So that's chapters 1 through 8. And then chapters 9 through 11, Paul is talking about the unity of Gentiles and Jews and the way those promises look like now and the way they'll be fulfilled in future time. And so now we pick up in Romans 12, and Paul's now speaking into his church in Rome. And he's saying, I love the way he starts this. Look at this in verse 1. Therefore, brothers and sisters, beautiful metaphor. That's not accident. They're not literally brothers and sisters. You realize that. It's not just like he's not speaking to one family. He's speaking to most likely house churches that gather throughout Rome. And he's calling them brothers and sisters. There is a unity that you have in the Spirit that is likened to brothers and sisters in view of the mercies of God. In other words, in view of the previous 11 chapters. He just summarizes the previous 11 chapters by the mercies of God. If there's any revelation that I feast from on a regular basis, it is God's mercy towards me. It's the fact that there's nothing I could do to earn this. There's actually nothing I can do to be disqualified from it. The only thing that needs to happen is I need to recognize my need for it. And when I do, I become a recipient of God's mercy. God's mercy is available. It's sitting there. It's waiting. But it needs a recipient to receive. And therefore, brothers and sisters, in view of the mercies of God, I urge you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Not just your soul, not just your immaterial spirit, but your body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true worship. Don't be conformed to this age. In other words, your primary formation is not done by the left or the right, by conservatives or liberals, by the capitalists or the socialists, by your workplace or your family of origin. Your primary formation comes like this. Don't be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind so that you may discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. For by the grace given to me, I tell everyone among you not to think of himself more highly than he should think. Instead, think sensibly, as God has distributed a measure of faith to each one. In other words, think sensibly. Everything you have came from God anyway. I don't know, did you get to choose your hair color? Or your talents? or your looks. We don't get to choose this. What we have came from God. Think sensibly about that. Now, as we, as the church, have many parts in one body. Say one body. Paul's changed metaphors. We were a family, brothers and sisters. We still are. But he's getting even a little more intimate. You're not just brothers and sisters. Actually, the cosmic body of Christ is one body. And all the parts do not have the same function. In the same way, we who are many are one body in Christ. And individually, we're members of one another. Isn't that a powerful phrase? I'm not sure this completely captures it, but this is getting at the idea. You belong to your neighbor. You're a member of your neighbor. And that reality is not, it's not like either you are or you're not, depending on if you want to be. Paul is trying to give us a revelation that this is who you are spiritually in view of God's mercies. God's mercy has been poured out on us. You're now unified with your neighbor. And the opportunity that lies before us, Paul's going to speak into. Individually, you're members of one another. According to the grace given to us, we have different gifts. And then he goes into gifts. Prophecy, use it according to the proportion of one's faith. If service, use it in service. If teaching, in teaching. If exhorting, in exhortation. Giving with generosity. Leading with diligence. Showing mercy with cheerfulness. Sometimes, some of these lists kind of get on my nerves. Showing mercy. In other words, when you find a need that you have to meet, don't be grumpy about it. Be cheerful about the needy people that you're members of. Verse 9, let love be without hypocrisy. Some translations say sincere or genuine. Let love be without hypocrisy. Detest evil, cling to what is good. Love one another deeply as brothers and sisters. Take the lead in honoring one another. Anybody convicted yet? Just me? Okay. Don't lack diligence in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in affliction. Be persistent in prayer. Share with the saints in their needs. I love this phrase. Pursue hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and don't curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Don't be proud. Instead, associate with the humble. Don't be wise in your own estimation. Don't repay anyone evil for evil. I love this, give careful thought to what is honorable in everyone's eyes. It's especially important in a diverse community like ours, where cultural humility and honor for one another is extremely important. If possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Friends, don't avenge yourselves. Instead, leave room for God. I love that. Leave room for God's wrath, because it's written, vengeance belongs to me. Why do we give vengeance to God? He's the only one who can see enough to judge fairly. He's the only one. I will repay, says the Lord. And then they quote, Paul quotes an Old Testament idiom. But if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. For in so doing, you'll be heaping fiery coals on his head. The idiom means he's going to be overwhelmed by the fact that you're doing good in spite of him doing bad to you. Don't be conquered by evil, but conquer evil with good. What a standard. Buddy, overwhelmed and convicted and inspired all at the same time. Isn't that incredible? Yeah. Don't forget that all of this is done. It's built on the mercies of God. Paul's already covered in Romans chapter 8 that we're filled by God's Spirit. Nothing in the Christian life is meant to be done with simply our own effort. It's not about trying. It is about being shaped and trained and formed with the Spirit of God's help into God's people on earth. So I'm going to talk about how do we practice intentional connection. And each of these points are going to be kind of action-oriented, and then I'll kind of unpack the conceptual side behind it. And we're going to end this message. We're not going to have an altar call. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to go do it. So the prayer teams are going to be available if you need prayer for anything in your life, but this is not that kind of a message where we end with that. It's a message where where we reflect on what the Bible is calling us to practically. And the first practice for intentional connection is this: choose the one in front of you. Choose the one in front of you. Christian community starts when you choose the person in front of you. Have you ever noticed our tendency to think that the best person to connect with is the one we haven't yet met? It's like the person over there, outside of my current circle. Like, ooh, I'd really like to be friends with them. If only James Aladrin would give me some time. I would have the kind of friend that I need. And it's not that this never happens. Obviously, we do meet new people who become friends. It's not that process that I'm addressing. It's more the perspective. It's that perspective that tells me these people, the ones in front of me, aren't the ones I need to connect with. It's somebody else. I remember, so in my uni years, kind of late high school and university, I thought I was going to be a rock star. Like, that's what I thought, okay? I know it's obvious now, guys, that never would have happened, but I was 17, okay? It's what I thought I would do. So I lived in Nashville, Music City, kind of doing the thing, doing the gigging thing and the touring thing, and this is what I'm going to do with my life. And all my friends were musicians, and I thought that musicians was like the greatest group of people on planet Earth. And it's all I wanted to hang out with. No ego or pride there, certainly. And my dreams certainly weren't self-centered. But the Lord, around that time, started to just rock my world. And I had an encounter with the living God. And it's this sign. If you've never encountered the Lord, I've heard it explained different ways, but they often get at the same theme. And for me, that looked like this overwhelming sense of my unworthiness and my brokenness and my radical acceptance and God's love. And it's like I'm more broken than I was willing to admit, yet I'm more accepted than I could have ever imagined I could be. And it's those two feelings simultaneously. And they break down your walls in the most beautiful way. And they want you, this feeling of I want to know more of the person that I just experienced, that I just touched. And part of that call for me was a call out of Nashville. And like we talk about a lot of Israel coming out of Egypt, this is many of our stories. There's a coming out before there's a coming in. And a lot of that is because God wanted to get Nashville out of me. And if you've ever been around an entertainment town, it shapes you. It shapes the way you think. And so God needed to get that out of me because he had something else for me. But I found it incredibly difficult to connect with people in the place that he sent me to. I wrestled. I feel like I didn't click with like the people, the things like that we were into weren't the same. It's like I felt frustrated. I was not at rest. And I most of the time my prayers were written. I just prayed a lot in writing to the Lord. And if hopefully I will never find those journals. But if I did, they would be really emo kid, okay? And they would be all about, like, I'm not feeling like connection with these people, and Lord, why have you sent me here? And I had such deep friendships and such effortless connection. And there's something, though, that happened in the few years of what God was taking out of me and then what he put me into, that some of the friends I made that I had almost nothing in common with in that season are still my closest friends today. And I realized part of the reason I was struggling with connection with them is because I was comparing them to people I used to be in relationship with. So I was comparing the person in front of me to the person I was imagining. And here's what I realized. One of your greatest hindrances to genuine connection is imaginary connection. Is we're comparing the person in front of us to an idealized version of a friend or the person in front of us that we wished was there. And the danger is when you do that, you never actually go through the work that it takes to turn the relationship with the person in front of you into the relationship you really want and need. Because you're writing it off as the raw materials are not even available for me to work with. I need different raw materials, and they're out there. And why wouldn't God just connect me with people who I could connect with? Why wouldn't God just do that? If he did that, if he just let me stay in Nashville, I would have all my cool musician friends, and we would talk about how cool we are all the time. Now I'm with these people who aren't cool. And they listen to terrible music. And they talk about things I don't care about. But when I finally said yes to the people in front of me, there was a connection that started to fulfill Paul's instruction to the church when he said this: know no man after the flesh. What was the opportunity? It was an opportunity to lean in to the spirit connection that each of us had. And if we're not careful, our imaginations about the ideal friendship start to drive our pursuit in connection and community. And famously, Dietrich Bonhoeffer in his book Life Together speaks into this in one of the most striking, heavy-hitting passages on community I know of. Are you ready? Say, I'm ready. Bonhoeffer says this: those who love their dream of a Christian community more than they love the Christian community itself become destroyers of that Christian community, even though their personal intentions may be ever so honest, earnest, and sacrificial. This is a really serious, heavy phrase from a theologian, this next one. God hates this wishful dreaming because it makes the dreamer proud and pretentious. Those who dream of this idolized community demand that it be fulfilled by God, by others, and by themselves. They enter the community of Christians with their demands set up by their own law and judge one another and God accordingly. It is not we who build. Christ builds the church. Do not meddle in what is not your providence. Do what is given to you, and do it well, and you will have done enough. My very less learned and sophisticated version of that is choose the one in front of you. Choose the one in front of you. What is the first practice for intentional connection in this summer season? You're literally, in your mind, consciously, sometimes in the middle of a conversation, telling yourself, I choose you. I choose you. Some of you, this is really important as a married couple. You've started to feel your heart grow weary with the weight of marriage. You've started to sense this discontent. And from the soil of discontent, you can start itching for other people. And sometimes a simple practice that returns you back to the sanctity of the relationship you have is the simple discipline of choosing the spouse you already have. And it's from that soil of commitment and covenant that you'll find the ingredients of a healthy relationship can grow. But once you remove the soil, the characteristics once you remove the soil of those characteristics, there cannot be fruitfulness in your relationship. Doesn't matter how much you pray, how much you yell, how much you try, because you've removed the soil of commitment, of covenant. Bonhoeffer goes on to say, when he's speaking about marriage, he says, it is not romance that sustains the covenant. It's the covenant that sustains romance. And what is that? It's simply choosing the one in front of you. Practice number 1. Practice number 2. Set it and fill it. Set it and fill it. You know what I've noticed in my own life? I tend to do what I have scheduled. And I often don't do what I haven't scheduled. I don't know about you. I kind of live in the moment. I'm that kind of a person. I'm 150% wherever I am. Which means I better be in the right place. Because if I'm in the wrong place, I'm 150% in the wrong place. You can pray for my assistant right now. Set it and fill it. One of the things that makes Ramp Communities work is that they're scheduled. And I have discovered one of the most powerful tools in intentional connection is your calendar. Hold on, Joe. This is awfully practical. Surely genuine relationships are a lot more sophisticated than this. I'm actually not sure they are. George Whitefield, Jonathan Edwards, and Jonathan Wesley were like the major figures of the First Great Awakening in the 18th century. And church historians actually say that, some church historians say, that it's only been over the past few decades that we've seen some of the work from the First Great Awakening in the 1700s wane. That's how significant the First Great Awakening was in America and in England. And there's a conversation that Mark Benjamin records between George Whitefield and just a Methodist layman. And George Whitefield was known for his powerful preaching. Literally, thousands and thousands would gather in the open air to come hear him speak. And people would rush at the end of his messages to give their lives to Jesus. I mean, by the hundreds and the thousands. So for decades, he had seen, by all accounts, an unbelievable move of God through his life. But after kind of the main swell of the Great Awakening had ended, and then they were seeing kind of the fruit of that work, Whitefield is recorded having a conversation. And this conversation was with a man called John Poole, who was just an unknown member of the Methodist movement. And Whitefield asked John, he said, "John, are you still a Wesleyan?" And Poole replied, "Yes, sir, I thank God that I have the privilege of being connected to John Wesley, and I'm also one of his preachers." Whitefield replied, "John, you're in the right place. My brother Wesley acted wisely. The souls that were awakened under his ministry, he joined. Thus he preserved the fruits of his labor. This," Whitefield said, "I neglected, and my people are a rope of sand." Whitefield was recognizing that the awakening that happened through their ministries was not sustained by his ministry because he did nothing after the amazing revival moment. But John Wesley had incredible methods. That's why his movement became known as the Methodists. And Whitefield was recognizing his work of awakening is sustained because he's joined peoples together. Mark Benjamin would go on to say this: "Awakening will come as more and more people do the small thing." As thousands and then hundreds of thousands begin banding together, he's using one of Wesley's phrases. Wesley had groups of people that he put together in what he called bands, not bands, but groups of people. Benjamin is alluding to that. As thousands and hundreds of thousands begin banding together and doing the big work of awakening at the smallest level of disciple-making relationships. The scales will one day tip, and not only will a great awakening be upon us, but the Holy Spirit will have organized us into the kind of fellowship wherein awakening can grow, sustain, and multiply itself. There is a method in the madness. And when God moves, it feels like madness sometimes. It's just like amazing things are happening. I'm not sure where this is going, and people are saying things that just seem extraordinary, and chains are breaking off of people's lives, and they're being set free from things they could not leave on their own. Relationships are being restored. People are leaving behind addictions or dependencies that they've never left before. Their lives are being mended and being made whole. Now what? It's the big movement in the small. What do? We set it and we fill it. I love the writer of Hebrews recognizes this in Hebrews 10:24 through 20 and 25, a famous verse about gathering together. Let us consider one another in order to provoke love and good works, not neglecting to gather together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging each other and all the more as you see the day approaching. The writer of Hebrews recognizes that part of our gathering is simply habit. Wait a second. You mean you lead this church and you didn't wake up this morning on fire with going to church today? Some Sundays I don't. Some Sundays I ask for the Lord to give me the desire to do the thing I've already decided I'm going to do. It's a habit. It's a habit that I need. My soul needs it. Why? Because this is the everyday work of awakening in our lives. Here's what I've discovered. This is very practical. Is this okay? When you schedule what's most important, you're freed to live fully in the present moment. Why? Because you're not wondering if you should be doing something else. So what does it mean? What does it mean to actually set it and fill it? What does it look like for you? Well, what if you set up certain lunches or dinners every week that you filled with relational connection? You're like, well, I don't know how I'm going to meet there. That's the point. But you know, every Tuesday from 12 to 1 and every Thursday from 7 to 9, we're engaging with people on a one-to-one level. We're doing what Aaron and Desiree have so incredibly led us in, this table of hospitality. This is what we're doing. And I'm setting aside, and then I'm going to decide how I fill it. What would it look like for you to sit down and look at your summer? Just sit down with a calendar. Open up the calendar. I know this isn't spiritual enough. But just put it before the Lord and go, Lord, before I even schedule one thing, I ask for you to help guide me on what I'm about to do with my time. Because my time is a gift from you. You just gave it to me. I didn't ask you for it. For some reason, I was born. And here I am, and here's my schedule. And I need your help in doing with my life what's good for me and good for your kingdom. Amen. And then you hit that little plus sign at the top right of your screen, add event, and you put in lunch with ... Tuesday, 12 to 1. And then at the beginning of every week, what do? You fill it. You've said it now, and then you fill it. I love what Greg Boyd says. He says, remaining awake to God's presence in the present moment is the single most important task of the Christian life. And that no spiritual discipline is more foundational or transforming than this one. What happens when you set it, when you schedule it in? You're allowing yourself to be fully present in intentional connection, and you're going to see God move there. So the second practice is said it. The first practice is choose the one in front of you. And the third practice is pursue deeper conversations. Pursue deeper conversations. And the way I'm going to facilitate or kind of unpack this point is through the work of John Powell, who's a therapist and a writer. He identifies 5 levels of communication. We're going to go through these because I want to give you a roadmap for what it looks like to pursue deeper conversations. The first level of communication, Powell tells us, is what he calls cliché conversation. Cliché. You probably already had 10 of those today. And there's nothing wrong with it. Actually, sociologists tell us they're really important in developing relationship. For those of you who hate small talk and you're like, no, I'm just going to cut straight to the deep stuff, that threatens the rest of us. Okay? I get freaked out on the first time I met you, you asked me my deepest, darkest secret. This is all of a sudden not a safe place for me to be. But some of us only live in small talk. We only live in level 1, cliché conversation. And cliché conversations, Powell tells us, are safe. They're routine. They're surface level. They sound like this. Hey, how are you? It took me, I know I'm a little thick, but it took me a few years to realize in the UK when someone asked me that, they didn't actually want to know how I was doing. And the way I learned is not someone told me, it's after about 50 people's eyes glazed over when I started to answer their question. And they felt trapped. Their posture was like moving on, and I'm answering the question. They're kind of like, finally I realized that's a greeting for these people. Safe, routine, surface level interactions. Nice weather today. It is. Maybe it'll be nicer next week. It's been the nice past few weeks. Can't believe it's already Sunday. It's almost like it comes every 7 days. July. It's July. It's what? It always comes after June. I think August is next. Christmas before we know it. You can use these, okay? They're necessary. Okay? Don't jump up to level 2, okay? That's steps. Don't skip level 1. They're icebreakers. They're for brief encounters, okay? If we've been standing next to each other for 15 minutes and we're still talking about July, it's time to move to level 2, folks. Why? Because they're limited. There's no real personal connection. It avoids risk. That's why we stay there. But connection requires risk at some point. And if you made it through level 1, you can get to level 2, which is reporting the facts. This moves on from cliche conversations that all of us say that are little signals that we're a safe person. We're not crazy. We're not a weirdo. I know the things that I'm supposed to say to start with. And then we move on to out of cliche, and now I'm just reporting different facts. I'm just sharing what's happened, what I've done, but without emotion or interpretation. I went to the dentist this week. Yeah, I hate the dentist. Oh, I don't so much mind it. I always just feeling fresh. Leave feeling fresh. We're moving house next month. She said she'll call back tomorrow. These are level 2. You're reporting the facts. And they have a use case as well, daily check-ins, updates at work, casual friends. So you'll recognize in the conversation when you've talked about the weather in July, and then you move on to just stating some facts about yourself, about your life. You need to recognize, okay, this is good. We've moved up a level. I've leveled up. Okay? But you're still guarded in level 2. The facts might be true, but they don't reveal you. And level 3 is where we start to get a little picture, not just of what you've done, but who you are. And that is expressing opinions. This is level 3. Some of you are already nervous. You're like, normally I stick around and talk after church. Not today. I ain't going to level 3 with nobody. Level 3 is where you offer your beliefs, your values, your judgments, and you take a little mild emotional risk. So that sounds something like, I don't actually think that new policy is going to work. No, I did see her crying this week, right? I remember the news. And here's my thoughts on that. Oof, you felt that freeze in the room, didn't you? I'm going to step out and give my opinion on something. I believe education should be free or paid for. These are my opinions. Level 3, you can already sense it in the room, even as I'm talking about it. I really liked that film, but a lot of my friends didn't. These are my opinions. This starts to build connection and trust. Differences can emerge here. You're like, this is why I avoid level 3 at all costs. When I can tell level 2 is leaning to level 3, that's when I say, I just remember I have a lunch with myself. Scheduled at home. Where I'm microwaving leftovers. But I must go now. The risk behind level 3 is you might be rejected or disagreed with. So this level tests emotional safety. But if we're going to intentionally connect, if we're going to practice intentional connection over the summer, if we're going to recognize I have a little more capacity because I'm taking some annual leave, because communities aren't in session, the ramp isn't doing loads of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some intentional connection. Then I'm going to pursue deeper conversations. And that's moving beyond the cliche. It's moving beyond just stating the facts. I'm going to give somebody my opinions. And again, this doesn't have to happen in every conversation, every interaction, okay? Don't be committed like, you're here, we're getting to level 5. Because Joe told me to. There are no awards for level 5 communicators. We don't give those out at the end of the year. This is in the right place for the right person, which takes your discernment and your wisdom. I think I'm just going to take this into sharing expressing my opinions, and that leads to level 4, which is sharing your feelings. Letting people know how you truly feel. That's level 4. Emotionally honest and vulnerable. There will not be many people you go here with. So this is not just like you live with your heart on your sleeve. That's not... For people that's your personality, you're like, this is every conversation of my life. Well, now you have a little understanding on why some people clam up when you start to go, because they didn't realize that this relationship facilitated that kind of communication, that type of honesty. We don't have the relational equity for you actually to put that kind of demand on me. Does that make sense? So it takes that kind of emotional intelligence. Level 4 is sharing feelings. And it sounds like this. I'm feeling pretty anxious about this decision. Like, it's troubling me. I felt invisible at that meeting. See, these emotional words. Honestly, I'm excited. And I'm a little scared. This is a good one if I can pick on the men in the room. This one's not always natural for us. We have like 2 emotions. Excited and enraged. It's like, what else are you? I don't know, I'm mad. I'm just mad. That's all I know. Well, can you think maybe for 30 seconds about what else you could be, or a little nuanced version of mad? Nope. Not happy anymore, so I'm mad. So there's this process of even self-understanding that this type of connection allows us to have. Oftentimes, I don't even know how I am until someone asks me. The first time someone asks me how I am in any one day, I'll be like, oh, I'm good. And then I'll leave, I'll be like, am I? It's probably been a minute since I've even thought how I am. And sometimes I need someone, again, who's earned this place, who's built this kind of a trust in my life, to actually then say, how are you? No, I actually mean, how are you? It's not a greeting. That's a question. And that allows me to find those emotional words. And then sometimes through clarifying questions, you can explore level 4 a bit more. Oh, wow. Well, what was it about that made you angry? Has that happened before? Well, what could have happened that wouldn't have made you angry? These are kind of exploratory questions that allow people to explore level 4 a bit. Of course, the risk behind this is vulnerability, because it opens the door to intimacy, but also to potential hurt. Vulnerability is this: you have the access and the power to do damage to me. That's vulnerability. But safety is you choose not to. You know enough about me to destroy my reputation, in some people's eyes at least, but you choose not to. I've been vulnerable, and you are a safe place. And all of us need that. That's level 4. This deepens emotional connection. It is key in relationships. It's key in spiritual direction. It's key in healing work. You've got to be in tune with what's going on at some point. You don't need to live there, okay? You're not completely submerged. But you do know how to get there, and you do know how to express it. That's level 4, guys. We got one more level. Some people are like, I'm not prepared for this. Level 5, transparency. Level 5, transparency. Powell also calls this peak communication. And I don't even know if it can be called a list. The number of names in this group are quite short in your life. Level 5 is complete openness. It's not just what you feel, but who you are beneath the surface. It's not just how you feel, but it's who you are beneath the surface. And examples of that sound like this. Sometimes I wonder if I'm even lovable when I don't perform well. Like I feel when I don't perform well, I feel that to be an existential threat against who I am. You're like, deep. Exactly. That's why it's level 5. It sounds like this. Here's who I believe I am. But I'm still figuring a lot of it out. Another example is I carry a fear that I will never fully belong. Do you see that's about who you are beneath the surface and the wrestles there? The use case for this is deep friendships. You're like, I have 0 of those. Well, part of this is a roadmap on how to even form friendships. And you continue to go to different levels at different times in the right place over a long time, live a little life together, and you will form deep friendships that can hold this level of transparency. So this is deep friendships. It's mentoring. It's spiritual direction. It's pastoral contexts where identity and trust matter. And the risk is it requires mutual trust and deep safety. It is not appropriate for all settings. Does that make sense? So the 3 practices for intentional connection: choose the person in front of you, you set it, and then you fill it. And then we're going to pursue deeper conversations. I want to empower you through this to start to diagnose your own levels of communication in your life. And there's no shame. This is not a shame or guilt-based thing, okay? If you're living in level 1 and level 2 and 99% of your life, all this is a tool to help you diagnose that. And go, you know what? Let's make a little list. Some of you don't need to brainstorm, you need to name storm. You open up your contacts, and you look through, or maybe it's your recent calls and you see what the most names are in there, who's popping up the most, and you do a little name storm. You just write down these names of who am I going to invest in, and I'm not going from level 1 to level 5 in one conversation. I hope that point has been understood. Okay? Next couple weeks at Ram Church, I'm going to be walking around after service, and people are going to be like, all over the place. Blood all over the floor. This is going to help you diagnose conversations. It's going to help you model vulnerability. Because oftentimes, you have to be the one who initiates from level 2 to level 3. From talking about facts to talking about emotions. Otherwise, everybody's like sitting like, you first or me first? You first. It's like, who's going, And you just got to be that one. It helps you create safe spaces. You're rarely going to be in levels 4 or 5 unless you feel incredibly safe, which takes time. It also allows you to ask depth-building questions, and then it allows you to reflect. So as you look back over the past week and over the set times that you did, what about my Tuesday lunch, my Thursday dinner? How did those go? What levels of conversation were we at? And it's not in a clinical way. It's in a helpful way that allows for reflection and growth. And if you have one conversation over the summer that moves from level 2 to level 3, that's a win. This is not about I'm some emotional like Jedi Knight at the end of summer, okay? It's not what this is. But what I am imagining, though, what it's going to look like at the end of this summer when we practice intentional connection. I know what it's going to look like for me, and I can imagine what it's going to look like for you. You're going to go into the autumn as life starts to pick up in more of a rhythmic sense, gets full in different ways, and heading towards the holidays. You're going to feel a greater sense of being known, of being seen, of being challenged in the right ways. You're going to feel like someone's in your corner a bit, like fighting for you, like maybe they do think some of your ideas are kind of squirrely, but they're with you. So it says they're behind you. You're not alone in that new promotion that you're going to go for at work. That challenging situation with your kid that you feel like you can't get on top of, all of a sudden you feel it's a bit more normal. You thought you were the only person who had that trouble with a child, but now you realize, oh, I'm not. And the struggle to not wrap maybe it's the struggle to not wrap your head around this one kind of professional thing at work. And it's like, oh, you deal with that too, but you're already further along with me in your workplace. What did you do about that weakness or that inconsistency? Why? Because it happens through intentional connection. We start to feel seen and heard, known, championed, challenged. And when you do this year on year, season on season, you wake up one day and you realize there are more level 5 conversations in my life than I ever thought there would be. When I first heard this message, I thought they would never happen. I just could not see myself in that story. And now I don't even remember what year Joe spoke on that, but the flyer's still in my fridge. And for some reason, I'm like, now I'm just experiencing more of that. And it's like I live in this place of more intentional connection. And I feel my heart and my soul connecting.